It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the Princess of Wales takes the blame for editing the Mother's Day photo that raised more questions than it answered. The image of Kate and her 3 children was pulled by international picture agencies last night, with the Princess confirming today that it had been manipulated. Coming up, we're going to discuss whether the affair has damaged the public's trust in the royal family, who, in trying to see off conspiracy theories about the Princess of Wales, have actually fuelled further speculation. Also tonight, I want my country back. Former Deputy Chair of the Conservative Party, Lee Anderson, defects to Reform UK and fires a parting shot at the Tories over his suspension in the Islamophobia row. 170,000 people are reported missing in the UK every year, with an incident every 90 seconds. Tonight, we want to tell the stories of 2 people, each of them missing for several years now, to find out how the authorities go about tracking them down. And is there a doctor on board? I'll speak to the medic from Essex who delivered a baby mid-air on a flight home to Luton Airport from Jordan. All that to come and much more here on the UK Tonight. The Princess of Wales has publicly taken the blame for the manipulated family photograph that was issued by Kensington Palace yesterday. The image of Kate and her children, said to have been taken by the Prince of Wales, was released to mark Mother's Day, but it was withdrawn by picture agencies just hours later because of inconsistencies in the image. Kensington Palace says it won't be issuing the original, unedited photograph. And the picture, presumably decided to end speculation surrounding the princess's health, has actually raised more questions than answers. Our royal correspondent, Rhiannon Mills, has this report.
A couple well-liked and widely respected, but visibly under pressure. The Prince and Princess of Wales were pictured together leaving Windsor, as another photograph had forced Kate to issue this apology. Like many amateur photographers, she said, I do occasionally experiment with editing. I wanted to express my apologies for any confusion the family photograph we shared yesterday caused. I hope everyone celebrating had a very happy Mother's Day. See. This was the picture taken by William and released on Mother's Day to try and calm rumours about Kate's health. Instead, killed by picture agencies around the world because they said it's not entirely real. The palace won't say what they've changed and are still refusing to release the original. Ray Wells was the picture editor for one of the UK's biggest broadsheet newspapers.
I hope there are some very red faces at Kensington Palace in their press office today, because they've, I think, effectively allowed Kate to throw herself under the bus on this. And it begs the question, was anybody paying attention?
They're used to drowning out the noise of a scandal. But as Queen Camilla led the family for the Commonwealth Day service, along with Prince William, the timing couldn't have been any worse. Overshadowing the King's first video message since he was diagnosed with cancer.
In recent weeks, I have been most deeply touched by your wonderfully kind and thoughtful good wishes for my health. And in return, can only continue to serve you to the best of my ability throughout the Commonwealth.
The King being unwell has meant a change of slogan for anti-monarchy campaigners, the picture saga playing right into their hands.
I think it's going to have damaged their reputation quite considerably, and it's going to raise a lot of questions as to how much people are going to believe in the future. And it goes to the heart of one of the biggest problems of the monarchy is that they are incredibly secretive. We've just launched a campaign on that very issue, and they have very helpfully thrown a massive spotlight on it.
It's incredibly rare to see a personal statement from the Princess of Wales like this, but we've never been in this position before, where major picture agencies have had to pull an official royal picture. The problem for the palace, though, is that this isn't just about one photograph. They've now thrown themselves right into the middle of that debate about media manipulation and ultimately who we can trust. The absence of the King and Kate from big events has already brought a level of uncertainty. The last thing the royal family needs is questions about their credibility. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News at Westminster Abbey.
For for us this evening. There she is, Rhiannon. You summed it up perfectly at the end of your report. There is a certain section of the public going, what is all the fuss about? There's another section saying this is about trust and credibility. Where do you think this story is going to go next?
I was going to say virtually the same thing. I think this is one of those extraordinary royal stories that has completely blown up. Everyone seems to have an opinion, whether it is, look, leave her alone, she's had abdominal surgery, we should keep our noses out, or whether it's, hang on a minute, what on earth was going on with that picture? And I think for the palace, they clearly realised that there was no way that they could keep quiet on this one. They had to put out a statement. It is fascinating that the statement eventually came from the Princess of Wales herself. Many would say, well, hang on a minute, she's got a team around her. Why didn't they carry some of the can on this one? But I think for her, she obviously decided that she wanted to put this message out there. She, of course, is the one that's the keen photographer. But what is still interesting tonight is what we don't know about that photograph. As I said in my report there, we're not going to see the original, as far as I know at the moment. And also, they're keeping very quiet on exactly what was changed in the photo and why they changed it. Tonight, Prince William has been at an Earthshot Prize event. Hopefully we can bring you some of those pictures later. He was smiling, he was obviously surrounded by friends, he wasn't facing the scrutiny. But I think the problem with today is that it has raised questions about things like trust and credibility. Some people may say, well, hang on a minute, they may have only been small alterations in that picture, but they are playing into what is a huge debate at the moment in terms of manipulating pictures and also fake news. And that means that no matter how small some people may think those alterations were, it has had major repercussions for the Prince and Princess of Wales.
OK, Rhiannon, stay where you are. We'll come back to you in just a moment. For those who haven't seen the image, this is the one we're talking about. On one social media platform alone, it's had 80 million views worldwide. Some of these inconsistencies are actually circled there. It became a bit of a game for people today. How many inconsistencies can you spot? Well, of course, we know that photo editing happens all the time. I'm sure plenty of mothers did it to their Mother's Day photos yesterday. But normally it's limited to cropping pictures or fixing the exposure or the colour of them. And photography experts say there should be red faces at Kensington Palace, calling this row an unnecessary own goal. Here's our science and technology editor, Tom Clark.
It's a relaxed family portrait, all smiles to celebrate Mother's Day. As subject matter goes, it couldn't be less controversial. So why was the photo met with the rarest of journalistic retractions, a kill notice from multiple global picture agencies?
When you enlarge the image, things don't add up. There's really some very strange business going on. It becomes obvious that it's been manipulated or altered or doctored or whatever you call it, and really badly so.
According to AFP, the only reason they didn't spot the breach of their editorial rules sooner is that the image was from the UK royal family, a traditionally trusted source. Not anymore.
We have put out a really strong guideline, again, for all our editing desks in the world, not to trust the most trustable third-party image because we can, fall in that trap very regularly.
As soon as the news broke, social media erupted with scrutiny over the cuff of Charlotte's cardigan, speculation about a misaligned royal zipper. So what's happened? Well, pictures can be manipulated, but modern cameras don't lie if you can access the metadata embedded in the image file, which we did. So this is the original image file sent to media organisations like ours by Kensington Palace, and this is the metadata that was embedded in it, and it tells us quite a lot. The fact it was taken on a professional Canon camera, where it was taken, Adelaide Cottage, no surprises, that's where William and Kate live. But it also reveals that it was opened and saved twice in Adobe Photoshop. That's photo editing software.
So I've got two separate pictures taken literally split second apart, and then I simply take a brush and I kind of just erase the face off the top image.
To a professional photographer familiar with Photoshop, it's all pretty standard practice.
I think nearly all images that go on the internet of someone these days are edited. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's a removal of a blemish or a spot or something that shouldn't be there. So it's not unusual at all for a picture of a person to have been manipulated in some way.
The furore about this latest image isn't so much about why it was edited, but the fact it was. And in a world of readily available digital tools and powerful AI, where the line should be drawn about what can be trusted and what can't. Tom Clark, Sky News.
Well, I'm joined now by Andrew Pearsall, Senior Lecturer in Photojournalism at the University of South Wales. Andrew, thank you for joining us on the UK Tonight. Regardless what you think of this image in particular, it's reignited a debate about images, the source of them and how they can be manipulated. What was your first thought when you saw this image? Because I must admit, I saw it pop up on my social media feed on Mother's Day and didn't think too much of it. It just looked like a lovely family image.
Well, it was the same for myself. You know, I'm a father to 3 children, and my wife was celebrating Mother's Day and going out for a meal, and we saw it as the same. It's not until the public starts to look in greater detail at images like this where you start to see those very obvious digital manipulations. And I don't think it's a problem that Kate has put a manipulated image out if it was to just go out on her social media. For me, the issue is that she's taken it through the press channels, and the press channels are heavily regulated. And so that is the main reason why it was given this kill order, which sounds very, very severe, but it just means that this image will no longer be distributed because it goes against the ethical guidelines.
Yeah, we heard from a representative for the AFP picture agency saying they're now having to put out a notice to everybody that works for them, not even to trust the most trusted of sources. And that's what it comes down to, really. These picture agencies aren't allowed to edit anything. They can't even take out red eye from images. So strict are the rules. And the rules are there for a reason.
Yes, I mean, they're there in place to protect people like Kate. So that photojournalists, photographers, journalists, paparazzi, when they submit images into these systems, and they're huge systems. Photo editors go through thousands of images every hour, and so they can't they can't check every single one. Although they are looking now to bring in AI to be doing that checking, they have to have that trust, and that trust is gained by photojournalists having ethical standards, organizations having ethical standards, PR companies. Even the paparazzi will not put digitally manipulated images through, because then they will lose that revenue stream to make the money from that sort of celebrity industry. So the reason that it's really sort of caused that controversy is the fact that she's now taken it through that system. And of course, the PR media team of Her Royal Highness has now sort of been put in disrepute.
You mentioned it there, AI. We're all on high alert now, aren't we? Because images can be so easily doctored. In fact, you can do it on your own handset, can't you? And that's why this is an important conversation to have. Again, there will be a lot of people going, what is the big deal? It's a mum on Mother's Day wanting to put her best version of her children out there into the world. It'll be on public record for decades to come. But it is different, isn't it, when it's coming from a source like Kensington Palace? And we have to have this conversation now, particularly in a general election year, when there's a war in Europe, a war in the Middle East, about doctored images and about AI.
Yeah, I mean, quite a worrying situation is Google Pixel's new phone. It used to be very difficult for people to manipulate imaging. Now, manipulating imagery has been around since the birth of photography in the 1830s. We were able to do it, but it was very complicated. It required darkroom techniques. And even with Photoshop's been around 35 years, there was still a level of expenses and technology that you need to have. Now, if you just own a Google Pixel phone, you can just speak to the phone and choose the best picture possible. We are really moving into this very odd, hyper-real sort of era now, where you can't really trust what's out there. No doubt in history, it will be somehow sort of logged as the era of hyper-real manipulation, I guess.
Well, Andrew, that's why it'll be so interesting for people to have heard from Tom Clark there about the information that comes with a photograph, the metadata. And anyone can access that. If you're sent an image on your laptop or your PC, you can actually open the metadata of a photograph, and it can tell you quite a lot about it.
It's quite worrying at times, especially for online safety. If you take a photograph on an iPhone or on any digital phone camera, GPS data is embedded into that. Now, when you upload usually to Facebook and to Snapchat, that data is removed. But if you share a picture with somebody, they can know exactly where that location is, down to the nearest 4 meters. So it's quite scary, in fact, the amount of information that is involved in metadata. We teach our students to work with the metadata. We assess them through the metadata. We know exactly what they're taking pictures of. And I know that Kate's photograph was taken at a very shallow depth of field, which meant that the children were moving backwards and forwards, and they were becoming in and out of focus, which probably caused an issue whereby she probably took the best, sharpest images of all the children with their best smiles and kind of manipulated them together in a very crude way on Photoshop. But yes, you can find all sorts of information in that hidden data that not many people know about.
Yeah, but it's readily available to all of us when we receive a photograph. But like you said, it's a double-edged sword, concerns over privacy, but also a useful tool to look at the authenticity of an image. Andrew, it certainly opened a lot of people's eyes today, regardless of, or not of whether you think, you know, it's a big deal, this royal image being doctored. It's part of a wider conversation. Andrew Pearsall, thank you for joining us on the UK Tonight. Let's bring Rhiannon back in. Rhiannon, really interesting to speak to Andrew there. But we've had the latest pictures coming into us from central London. A busy day for the Prince of Wales. Of course, he wants to be talking about Commonwealth Day and this, the Earthshot Prize, his environmental endeavour. But everybody's talking about this family photograph.
We keep being told, whether it's around this photograph or whether it's been to do with all the speculation about Kate's health, that for Prince William, his focus is on his work and not on social media. And I think today is another day where, look, he's been through this before, hasn't he, when there's been a lot of noise around a specific scandal involving the royal family, and he's simply kind of got on with his work. They have this extraordinary ability to, I suppose, put on a brave face. Also tonight, though, it's a good event for him. He's surrounded by his friends, his supporters, trying to launch this thing called the Launchpad as part of Earthshot to try and raise more money for the innovators, the businesses that he's trying to support who are tackling the climate crisis. So for him, look, it's one of those events where he's going to feel very comfortable, but it's a hugely embarrassing day. As you mentioned as well, yeah, Commonwealth Day service today, when tonight I expected to be talking about his father, certainly not Prince William, because it was the first time that we've heard from King Charles in a video message that was played at the Commonwealth Day service. Has to be said, the pictures of him, you can see that there is a redness around his eyes and around his mouth, which would be understandable because of his cancer treatment at the moment. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about the fact that he said that he will continue to serve to his ability. The main focus is on that picture.
And Rhiannon, the royals never complain, never explain, and as far as we know, Kensington Palace said they aren't going to release the unedited image. Do you think that they need to break that rule here?
Do you know what? It's really interesting. We often talk about that mantra, don't we? But a couple of years ago, I was told that Prince William wanted to move away from that. He wanted there to be more openness from the monarchy. But I think what there is a very firm red line for him, and that involves his family, and we have 100% seen that when it comes to the Princess of Wales and the abdominal surgery that she's had. And they've basically stuck to the line that they released at the very beginning, saying that, look, she'd had this severe abdominal surgery, she was going to have 2 weeks in hospital, and then we wouldn't see her back on public duties until after Easter. They have not changed that position. And I think with this photograph, I'm not sure that we're going to hear any more. And one of the reasons why, I think, is because it involves his children. We know that he is deeply protective of them. They very rarely put pictures out of them. So in some ways, that is the another unfortunate thing about this photograph is it's not just of the Princess of Wales, it also involves the 3 children. And it's, I think that is what they will find very hard, is that they're also being scrutinised when it comes to the questions about how exactly this picture was manipulated.
Rhiannon, thank you. Rhiannon Mills with the latest on that story from Buckingham Palace for us tonight. Well, the continuing controversy over that royal photograph will feature heavily in tomorrow's newspapers. Our extended press preview is coming up from 10:30 along with our news review. Tonight's news and tomorrow's headlines. Joining us tonight, The Sun's chief political correspondent Jack Elsom and The Guardian's political correspondent Alita Adu. Still to come here on the UK Tonight, a police force has been put into special measures accused of letting down victims of crime. You can find out which one and why after the break. Plus, is it a defection if you're pushed? We'll find out what Lee Anderson had to say today as he turned from the Conservatives to Reform UK.
Big stories don't always come from big cities.
I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent, and this is where I grew up. We can reveal that the driver who hit Harry Dunn is 42-year-old Anne Sakoulas.
Just met the president and we never thought we'd get this far.
This is what they're up against, that the wind is the really big problem. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick. It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have.
What would you do if this place wasn't open?
We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
I never knew they would make it. It's amazing.
Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching the UK Tonight. Here's what's on the way. The family's fighting for answers in the search for their missing relatives. And we'll meet the British doctor who helped to deliver a baby mid-air on a flight from Jordan to London Luton. Now, Nottinghamshire Police has been put in special measures and asked to urgently produce an improvement plan by the police watchdog. The move follows an inspection by His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, which said that the force was letting down the victims of crime. Chief Constable of Notts Police, Kate Maynell, said that she recognised the serious nature of the findings and had taken urgent action to address concerns raised. Well, it comes after the police force faced intense criticism over their handling of the Nottingham attacks case. This is after Valdo Calacane stabbed to death 3 people in the city in June last year. The families of Ian Coates, Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley-Kumar welcomed the move today and said that they hope it gives the city's residents more reassurance in their public safety. Well, in a statement today, they said in her response to today's report, Kate Maynell has advised victims of crime are at the heart of everything that we do. Given the misinformation, mistruths and failures that we as devastated families have had to contend with from this police force, we couldn't more strongly disagree with her. We have to be optimistic that proper investigations will be carried out and result in more than lessons learned and apologies. We want real change to happen. And that must, without doubt, include individual and organisational ownership and responsibility. In other news today, former Conservative Deputy Chair Lee Anderson fired a parting shot at the Conservatives today as he defected to Reform UK. Mr Anderson, you may remember, was suspended by the Tories after refusing to apologise for claiming the Mayor of London was under the control of Islamists. Speaking earlier, he said he had no intention of apologising and accused his former party of stifling free speech. Our political editor Beth Rigby has this report.
After weeks of speculation, the day finally arrived.
I'm delighted to announce that I have found that champion of the Red Wall for Reform UK. Please welcome Mr Lee Anderson.
Three parties, Lee Anderson, from Labour councillor to Tory Red Wall MP and now Reform's first Member of Parliament.
I will start by saying I want my country back.
The rumours of a defection swirling ever since the outspoken MP for Ashfield was suspended by the Tories over Islamophobic comments made towards the London mayor.
We are giving up our streets to a minority of people who literally hate our way of life. We are allowing people into our country that will never integrate and adopt our British values.
Mr Anderson doubling down and refusing to apologise, but questions about whether he was letting down Conservative colleagues given short shrift. What do you say to people that say the problem isn't all these parties, the problem is you and this is all about attention seeking? What's your answer to them?
Country, constituency and then party. Next question, please, Richard.
What? Sorry.
Next question.
What do you say to your colleagues
I've given you the answer, Beth.
who feel really let down this morning?
I've given my answer. Next question, please.
But what's your message to Mr
We're going to move next. We're going down the...
He hasn't answered my question. The defection a blow for the Conservatives, this man determined to press home the point.
The Tories are doomed. They are toxic, they're being punished in the polls, and they will be punished at the general election, and quite rightly so.
Home Secretary James Cleverly today at a fraud summit, Frank too. Mr Anderson's made a mistake.
I like him personally. I think he's made a real mistake. Because, as he has said in his own words, reform is not the answer.
But Labour say Tory divisions are damaging the country.
Another day, another story about Tory division. And, you know, I think the bigger picture here is now you've got a government that is so distracted, it's divided, it's arguing amongst itself.
Up in Mr Anderson's constituency of Ashfield, voters unimpressed by his flip-flopping.
Well, it's that worth voting for, because he can't make up his own mind, can he?
You don't know your politics, so you just keep going around in circles. I don't know.
You just think, well, you know, who are you for?
Ashfield, a Red Wall seat that turned Tory in 2019, was already a key election battleground that's now turned into a fight for the heart of the Conservative Party too. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
Still to come on the UK tonight. After the break, we're going to be highlighting the missing people of the UK. There's a missing incident reported in the UK every 90 seconds. Most don't make the headlines, some do. But what happens to the families who are trying to find them years on? We'll be talking to some of the families affected and the people who are trying to find them. Welcome back. You're watching the UK Tonight. We've got some breaking news now to bring you from Greater Manchester. This is an incident that's taken place in Bury Market. We're getting information from Greater Manchester Police about an incident on Murray Road in the town. Officers are at the scene after what is believed to be a stabbing. The extent of the injuries sustained by 3 victims, we are told by Greater Manchester Police, are thankfully not thought to be life-threatening. The police going on to say that no arrests have yet been made. Their inquiries are ongoing. The Detective Chief Inspector John Charlton has said this: "We believe this incident was a targeted attack, and thankfully no one has suffered life-threatening injuries. There is not a threat to the wider public, and we believe this was an isolated incident." You may see heightened patrols in the local area. He goes on to say, "Do not be alarmed by this. Our officers are there to help, support and reassure the wider community." We're appealing to anyone with information about this incident to make a report to the police. This includes anyone that may have footage like CCTV, mobile, ring doorbell or dash cam footage. You can make a report by calling 101. So that's Greater Manchester Police still responding to an incident on Murray Road in Bury tonight. There's been an incident involving the stabbing of 3 people who have injuries, but thankfully not thought to be life-threatening. We'll bring you an update on that story as soon as we get any more from Greater Manchester Police. Now, I want you to take a look at the images behind me. These people are all missing. Someone is reported missing in the UK every 90 seconds. That's 320,000 incidents reported a year. Now, the vast majority are found within 2 days. Going missing for a longer period of time is very rare. But still, the numbers involved in the UK are shocking. An estimated 5,000 people missing for more than a year. And all of the people you can see here on screen have been missing for more than 3 years. Well, tonight, I want to bring you the stories of 2 of those people. 30-year-old Georgina Garshala. She vanished in March 2018. She was last seen at a corner shop in Worthing. Sussex police have taken thousands of reports and statements since Georgina's disappearance. They've investigated more than 90 reported sightings, but none have helped to find her. Sanjeev Kundi went missing in September 2013. He'd travelled to Paris. CCTV pictures from a train station in the French capital are the last confirmed sighting of him. That was more than 10 years ago. Well, I'm joined in the studio tonight by Georgina's mum, Andrea Garshala. We're also joined by Satvir Sembi, Sanjeev Kundi's sister. Alongside them, Louise Newell from the UK Missing Persons Unit and the National Crime Agency. Thank you all so much for joining us here on the UK Tonight. It's a really important conversation to have, Andrea, and I know that it's been a long time since Georgina disappeared. And while she may not be in the newspapers or featured on the news, this is still very much an ongoing situation for you. Talk to me about what it's been like since Georgina vanished.
It's been ongoing every day. Every day is a roller coaster, really, because I try to keep Georgina's story out there, finding new ways to keep her story out there, to create awareness, making videos, posters, talking to people, thinking, what can I do next? Something different, because people get bored. You know, people often say, oh, not this again. But it's my daughter, and, you know, as a mum, I feel that that's what I should do, and, you know, I want to do it. I want to find answers. She didn't just go out there and disappear, and for 6 years, she's a mummy. Her children,
Her 2 boys are with you?
They live with me, and, you know, they want to know, you know, what happened to mummy? Why isn't she coming home? They'll still say now, you know, when mummy comes home, can we go to that park again? Can we do that when mummy comes home? And sometimes I say, mummy might not come home, you know. And it is hard because to try and explain to them, because we've just lived with hope for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden now it's hard to hold on to that hope, you know.
Well, that's what we wanted to highlight in the UK tonight, is that, you know, these stories might not be in the headlines, but as you said, the urgency for you every day is as strong as it was the day you found out Georgina had gone missing. I want to bring in Satvir Sembi. Her brother Sanjeev has been missing now for 10 years. Satvir, describe to me the process of reporting a loved one missing. You're in absolute panic. Where do you go? How does this start? How does the search begin?
Hi, Sarah. It's really, really difficult. In Sanjeev's case, he went, you know, what we assumed was a week's holiday to Paris in September 2013 has ended up being a living nightmare for us. Originally, when he went missing, and he hadn't come back after a week, obviously we first thought, oh, maybe he stayed a couple of days extra, maybe he liked Paris. We just didn't know what to think. You know, we started to do all the usual things, you know, in terms of phoning friends and asking around. When we did get to the police themselves didn't really take it too seriously, because he told us he'd gone missing. He told us he was going on holiday. It was a planned event. So it wasn't as if he'd just gone out of the house. He'd gone to Paris on a holiday, and he was due back in a week's time. So the police, again, said, give it a few days, see how you get on. It wasn't until almost nearly 2 weeks after he still hadn't returned, and we had to go back to the police and said, look, you need to take this seriously. You know, he really has not come back. We don't know, we can't get hold of him. We don't know where he is. It's really quite frightening.
It's frightening and it's frustrating, isn't it? Because this has been 10 years and there are so many cases like this over 10 years. And this has been, you know, this is one of a number of similar stories in the UK.
Yeah.
What happens in those 10 years? Are the police still looking for him? Or do you have to take matters into your own hands?
Yes and no. So, like anything with the police, they have a number of years to fund this sort of thing with people going missing. Then they have more high-profile cases, like, you know, criminals and other things to follow up. So, a missing persons case, once they've done their initial investigation, kind of just gets left, and that's heartbreaking for us, because unless we as a family are pushing and, you know, trying to look for evidence. You know, I always say in this sort of thing, you end up becoming a detective yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly looking for evidence and clues and, you know, I don't know how many times we've searched the room.
Nobody will care more about your loved one's whereabouts than you. Let's bring in Louise Newell, Senior Manager within the Missing Persons Unit at the National Crime Agency. Louise, you deal with these cases, you deal with families whose loved ones have been missing for more than 3 years. What work is going on to bring them home, to find them?
Well, the work never really ends. I think all police forces will conduct reviews on missing person cases, even if they have gone cold, which essentially means there are no longer any active lines of inquiry. So we always review cases to see what else can be done. Are there any new lines of investigation that can be explored? Is it worth refreshing intelligence checks? Can you do more publicity? But I mean, as you've already highlighted, the figures are huge in terms of missing. It's 150,000 individuals go missing every year in the UK. Fortunately, majority are solved, but when there is a delay in either the report of someone going missing or there is a delay in the police picking the investigation up, you do start to lose investigative opportunities. And once you've lost a few of those, it is very difficult to then get ahead again onto the investigation.
Andrea, where are you in the search for your daughter? How much support are you still getting from the police?
We don't have meetings or anything, probably yearly. The last time we had a meeting last year, they said they didn't have any new information. We went through old things, and I've asked questions to find out answers that I didn't really understand before. It was mostly things like that. We didn't have, you know, they've said that unfortunately information has dried up, and it's just waiting for a member of the public really to come forward with any information, because that's the only way that this case is going to be solved, is what we were told.
It's conversations like this, though, that keep your daughter Georgina Garshala's story out there, because you're still looking for information. It was Mother's Day yesterday. These poignant moments come and go. What's that like for you? What's that like for her boys?
Usually I try to do something with them. We go and let off some balloons, or we let off some flower seeds or something, and send out love to Mummy, and wishes of hope and things like that. So I say, let's send Mummy wishes when we let off the balloons, just to try and keep that Mummy bond as well with them, to just keep that hope always.
How do you keep that hope alive?
I think maybe being behind all this campaign has made me really strong as well.
You're not letting this drop. You'll always look for her.
You know, sometimes my daughters will say, "Come on, Mum, have a," you know, and I think I can't. You know, this is my daughter. If I don't do this, who's going to do it? You know, I'm constantly doing things, thinking, what else can I do? What else can I say? How can I make a different video to get across to people? What else can I do? I've run marathons, I've walked and done silent walks, and, you know, all sorts, just to keep her name out there. And it's hard to keep someone's story sort of out in the public, because there's constantly new people being missing all the time as well. And there are people who've been following us for years and years. But for me, it's you do become frantic sometimes and think, you know, why is nobody listening to me? Why are the police not finding answers? That's what they're supposed to do.
I'll bring Louise back on that. Louise, how do you answer those questions to the relatives of loved ones who have been missing for years, because they don't have a definitive answer about what has happened to them? They may never get one, and they're not going to ever give up, and they would hope police would neither.
Yes, I mean, there's no reason why missing person investigations should ever be closed until that person is found, regardless of the circumstances. Those cases should be kept open, and they are. In terms of the families, police are sort of expected to be sort of jack of all trades, and they probably don't have the best resources to provide the support to families that they need. So there are charitable organisations, missing persons charity, missing people charity. It provides a huge amount of support to these families, not just in publicity, but in the practicalities of carrying on with life, because life doesn't stop when someone goes missing. It continues for the family, and they have to do all of the practical, paying the bills and so forth, but also linking in and speaking to other family members from different cases who've gone through the same sort of thing, to get that emotional support, which the police just can't provide.
Well, Louise Newell, thank you so much for talking to us to shed light from the police's side of the story. Satveer Sembi, still looking for her missing brother, Sanjeev Kundi, and Andrea, the mother of Georgina Garshala, missing as well from Worthing. Thank you very much. We will put their images out on our website, because it is conversations like this that keeps their story out there for any new information that may come, you know, however many years later. Thank you so much for talking to us here on the UK Tonight. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
So much.
Coming up on the UK Tonight, is there a doctor on board? We're going to meet the physician who put his hands up on a flight to Luton. He's going to pick up the story and tell us just what happened next.
Tonight on the programme, Haiti is now being described as a war zone, with millions afraid to leave their homes. We'll have the latest on the situation there, plus rare access to Italy's football fans who treat violence as a religion. We go inside the world of the ultras. And just how much has the edited photograph of the Princess of Wales harmed trust in the royal family worldwide? That's coming up in 15 minutes on The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
I lost my son 18 years ago. He died when he was 5 weeks old. He contracted meningitis. And as you can imagine, my grief in those early days was all-encompassing. And what happened over the years is that you don't get better from grief, but you learn to live in a different way. You learn to cope with it. And I realised a few years ago that I had moved to a point where actually I was no longer just surviving but thriving. And because I'm a writer, what I wanted to do was to write about that. I wanted to open up the discussion about grief. I think it's something that, particularly in this country, we're not particularly good at. So I wrote my book, I Promise It Won't Always Hurt Like This. I've looked at grief in my fiction, and I think I thought I was quite good at processing my emotions as I wrote about it. But when you're writing using fictional characters, there's a sort of layer of protection. When you're writing a memoir, you owe it to your reader to be completely honest about your feelings, and that means all the ugly bits of grief. Grief isn't just crying into a starched handkerchief. It's the anger and the bitterness and the envy of other people's happiness. It's a really complex, long-lasting condition. Loss is universal, but grief is really unique to each person and unique to your individual grief. I lost my father shortly after my son died, and the way that I grieved for my father was totally different. I thought I knew grief, but actually it hit me in a completely different way. There are commonalities, though, from, I've spoken to lots of people who have lost loved ones, and we all agree that there are elements of being very angry, certainly insomnia, or perhaps the opposite, needing to sleep all the time. So there are sort of common threads, I think, among people who are grieving. The promise that it won't always hurt like this, that however dark the days feel in the early trenches of grief, that there are better times ahead.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent.
Hello, welcome back to the UK Tonight. Coming up, I'm going to speak to the doctor who flew into action, pardon the pun, this after a passenger went into labour on a flight to London Luton. You'll stick around for that, won't you, Nick?
I will.
First, we're going to talk about the sport, because that's pretty exciting in the Premier League as well at the moment, isn't it? All to play for in the top three. Just a point between them all?
One point between them all. I'll show you the league table in a second, but it's all been kind of set up and the appetite whetted by a real classic at Anfield yesterday. Liverpool and Manchester City. The only clubs who've won the title in the last 5 years or so. Manchester City took the lead with a very cleverly worked goal at the near post. It finished 1-1 in Jurgen Klopp's final season, as we all know, in charge at Liverpool. That might end up being a factor. But it probably is the Liverpool equaliser from Alexis McAllister's penalty. And that could be significant as well. The incident that led to the penalty, just show you the league table as I promised. There are 38 games of the season, therefore 10 each for them all to play. And as you say, 1 point in it. And that column on the right-hand side, their goal difference, Arsenal's is much better than Liverpool's and Manchester City's. It's going to be really tight. These three are better than the rest, so they're going to win most of their games. They are between now and the end of the season. So it could easily be the goal difference, the difference between the number of goals you score and the number of goals you concede. That could be decisive. But going back to that Liverpool penalty, Ederson, the very good Manchester City goalkeeper, injured himself in conceding that penalty. So double punishment, and he will probably be out for a few weeks, probably including the game between Manchester City and Arsenal, which could have obviously a massive bearing on the bearing of the title.
I mean, we've still got 10 games to go, haven't we? It's being called an historic run-in. Do you think that it's going to be as exciting as it's set up to be at this stage?
I think it probably is. Two reasons. One, we've got three teams in, and it's years since we had three teams with a genuine chance at this stage. And two, because, as I say, these three are so good compared with most of the rest that they will win most of their games. Therefore, I think it's unlikely that we're going to have 3 weeks to go and one team has run away with it. So that's what's happened over the weekend and what's going to happen the next 10 weeks. There is football happening tonight.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Now, this signifies a corner, okay? I don't want this and I don't want that. I need the hand up here, okay? That is contested.
It's school on a Sunday, but nobody's complaining, because the lesson is the laws of the game and the classroom is Villa Park. The FA wants to find 1,000 new black, Asian and mixed heritage referees from different communities around the country. It's part of the reflective and representative campaign.
We want to increase the pool of referees from these communities at a grassroots level, with the hope that in the future that these individuals can then go through the refereeing progression pathway and then eventually referee within the Women's Super League and in the Premier League. Historically, maybe the interest wasn't there, but actually we haven't probably done enough to actually showcase what refereeing is about.
You're going to go there and blow the whistle and give a direct free kick.
A lot of challenges that people talked about, the themes were, referee courses were too expensive, and that's why we've employed a bursary scheme as part of this campaign.
You two go.
Going into grassroots football and going into it as a referee, with all the other challenges that I have, the other added challenge.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Now, we always like to leave you with something weird or wonderful here on the UK Tonight, and this next story definitely falls into the wonderful category. A British doctor on board a flight from Jordan to London Luton Airport delivered a baby mid-air after a fellow passenger went into labour. 28-year-old Hassan Khan was flying home from a holiday in Oman on Saturday when the flight crew called for a doctor. Hassan then delivered a healthy baby girl before the flight was diverted to southern Italy. And I'm very pleased to say that Dr. Hassan Khan joins us now to take us through a very unexpected turn of events on that flight. Tell me, what went through your mind when the air steward over the tannoy said, "Is there a doctor on board?"
The first thing that came to my mind is that I was actually travelling with 6 of my other friends who were all doctors. So out of all the flights that this could possibly have happened on, I would say it was a relatively good one because we had quite a few numbers of medical staff available. So all of us, volunteered and we went to assess the situation and we thought, who is best equipped in this situation to deal with the problem at hand?
I love that. This expectant mother had a team of doctors, probably more so than she would have had if she gave birth in a hospital. And talk me through what happened, because, of course, you've got nothing to hand that you would do in a hospital.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once we identified that she was pregnant and it was waters had broken and she was expecting to deliver soon, which was complicated by the fact that she didn't speak a word of English. So we were having to also work through people to help us translate. The first thing that sprung to my mind is, what do we even have available to us? In an ideal world, there's a list of 5 to 10 things that I'd like to hand in order to help me deliver the baby and then look after the baby soon after delivery. But not many of those things were available. So we had to just make do in the tough situation, 35,000 feet in the air.
I was going to say, what did you have? Was there a bit of a whip round from passengers as to various bits and pieces you could use?
Yes, absolutely. So we needed some simple equipment, towels and things like that to dry the baby as soon as the baby comes out, keep the baby warm, wrapped up nice and warm. Of course, this is not a usual occurrence on an airline flight at all. So not many airlines at all, I would say, are prepared for a birth to happen in the air. It's such a rarity. So having any of those equipments is just not common.
And Dr. Khan, how are mother and baby doing?
So I got the update a day later, as did the rest of us who were in the airport staying over at Diverted, that they're healthy so far. That's the updated information that I have as of the daytime of Saturday. I haven't got any further updates after that, but no news is good news, I can only assume.
Oh, well, it was a lovely baby girl. And if it was a boy, surely you'd have been in the running to, have your namesake there, but
it would be a nice token.
Would have been, wouldn't it? But just in terms of the reaction of everyone else on the flight, I mean, that's quite a difficult thing to do. A lot of pressure on you and the mum as well, with a plane full of passengers. What was the flight like after the birth?
Yeah, absolutely. I think after the main concern about what the next steps would be, because we were, of course, diverted halfway through our flight to Italy, most, if not all people, were amazed at what happened. Again, it's such a rarity that something like this can happen, and everyone was just saying that this is such a miracle that something like this has happened, as well as whilst they're there. So to witness something like this is again, nothing short of a miracle, is what everyone was saying.
Well, what a wonderful thing for you to be able to do. Dr. Khan, thank you very much for your time and well done.
Thank you very much, Sarah-Jane. Thank you for having me.
Well, that is all from the UK Tonight. You can catch up on the highlights on our webpage. Just scan the QR code on your screen. You can share your thoughts with us there as well. Coming up next, it is The World with Yalda Hakim. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. We'll see you then.